just when it seemed like the U.S. China trade war was cooling down. Just when the market started breathing a sigh of relief, the Trump administration has lit the fuse again, dropping a tariff bomb that stunned economists, investors, and global leaders alike. A shocking 245% tariff on Chinese imports announced overnight, with zero warning and maximum impact. Why now? What triggered this sudden escalation? And what does this mean? Not just for Beijing or Washington, but for your wallet, your job, your future? Because this isn't just a trade dispute. This is a high-stakes power struggle between the world's two biggest economies, and the fallout could shake the entire global system. So let's break it down. What's really happening behind the headlines, and what comes next? If you're passionate about understanding the real impact of global events, like today's U.S. China trade war escalation, hit that like button to support independent analysis. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters. Share this video if you think more people need to see what's unfolding. And most importantly, subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss a deep dive like this one. Alright, let's get into it. Things just got serious. Overnight, the Trump White House dramatically escalated the U.S. China trade war by slapping a staggering 245% tariff on select Chinese imports. This unprecedented move ranks among the most aggressive tariff hikes in modern trade history. But why now? According to Washington, it's a direct response to China's recent countermeasures. Beijing retaliated after earlier U.S. tariffs, imposing its own duties and restricting purchases of Boeing aircraft, a critical American export. The message from the U.S. is clear: retaliate and pay the price. With this latest strike, the trade standoff has shifted into uncharted territory, one that could reshape the global economic order. The Trump administration is no longer framing this as just an economic dispute. It's now a matter of national security. Officials argue that China is deliberately restricting exports of strategic minerals like gallium, germanium, and antimony, materials essential to the U.S. military, aerospace innovation, and the semiconductor industry. Without them, America's technological edge could be at risk. But Beijing isn't backing down. Chinese officials accuse Washington of resorting to pressure tactics, intimidation, and economic blackmail. They maintain that their actions are measured, legal, and aimed at protecting sovereignty and national interests in the face of what they see as U.S. aggression. So how is China responding? Now here's where it gets interesting. Chinese state media framed the situation as a U.S. retreat and used it to reinforce a key message: China's supply chain is vital to the global economy. That was the tone early on. But fast forward to today, and the messaging out of Beijing has shifted. Probably in response to the mixed signals coming out of the White House, Chinese officials are now doubling down. Their stance? The U.S. should scrap the tariffs entirely and reverse what they're calling wrongful actions. And here's the kicker: a state TV-linked social media account, which is now closely watched for hints on China's trade posture, just posted an update. It criticized the Trump administration's strategy, saying their belief that China will cave under pressure from high tariffs is, quote, a delusion. So clearly, Beijing is signaling they're not blinking. Martin Wolf, chief economic commentator at the Financial Times, didn't mince words. He called Trump's 245% tariff utter lunacy. According to Wolf, President Xi Jinping simply cannot afford to appear weak, especially in front of China's domestic elite and the global stage. China has been Trump-proofing its economy for years, he said, pointing to efforts to reduce dependence on U.S. exports and diversify supply chains. While Xi has historically resisted large-scale social spending, Wolf believes that in a crisis, economic survival will trump ideology. With low public debt and policy tools at its disposal, China has the capacity to launch serious stimulus and endure. Now here's the message coming loud and clear from Beijing. If the U.S. wants real dialogue, we need to see real action. That's the line. No more vague promises or posturing. China wants tangible steps before it even considers coming back to the negotiating table. And behind the scenes, Chinese state-linked voices are already floating potential countermeasures. And this time, it's not just about tariffs. They're pointing straight at American intellectual property and U.S. brands operating in China. Big names were mentioned: Disney, Comcast, Sony, Paramount Global, even Netflix. These companies have deep ties in China: theme parks, production deals, consumer goods. And now, they could become political flashpoints. The message? Chinese consumers could be encouraged to turn away from American products. A soft power retaliation that hits the cultural and commercial heart of U.S. influence. Donald Trump insists the U.S. holds all the leverage, that China needs America more than America needs China. He argues that without access to U.S. consumers, China's export-driven economy could falter. But the reality is far more complex. This isn't just a bilateral trade disagreement. It's a geopolitical clash between the world's two dominant economies, each vying for influence, control over critical technologies, and leadership in global markets. When these giants collide, the ripple effects are global. From supply chain disruptions in Europe, to price shocks in Africa, to economic uncertainty in emerging markets. This is not a sideshow. It's a global crisis in the making. This trade war is not just about who sells more steel or who wins the next round of tech manufacturing. It's about control over supply chains, technological supremacy, and global influence. From smartphones in India, to car parts in Germany, to food exports in Brazil, everyone gets pulled into this fight. If this spiral continues unchecked, we're not just talking tariffs, we're talking long-term economic decoupling. Two rival systems forming parallel worlds of trade, finance, and tech. We're talking a new kind of Cold War, an economic Cold War. One where allies will be forced to pick sides, where neutral players suffer the fallout, and where global cooperation starts to fracture under the weight of nationalism and protectionism. So the question isn't just, what will Trump or Xi do next? It's deeper than that. It's, how much longer can the rest of the world afford to sit back and watch? Because when two economic superpowers go head-to-head, no one stays on the sidelines for long. So what do you think? Is Trump's 245% tariff a power move to protect American interests? Or a case of economic self-sabotage that could backfire on U.S. consumers and businesses? Will Xi Jinping bend under pressure, or double down and lead China into a new era of self-reliance? We've heard both sides. Now, we want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't hold back. Do you support these tariffs? Or do you think this whole trade war is a dangerous game with no real winners? Smash that like button if this video gave you a new perspective. Share it with someone who needs to understand what's really going on behind the headlines.